This has Rockets fans concerned, as an ESPN NBA insider just labeled the Rockets as one of the teams with the worst point guard depth in the entire NBA. We talk about this concern, if it is valid, and all the latest behind it right here on Rockets Digest. Welcome, everybody. I'm Jace Andrews. I appreciate you tuning in to today's show. We hope you are having a wonderful Tuesday wherever you might be. And we've got lots to discuss because this is a concern that I think has been on the minds of Rockets fans for the past 2 to 3 months at this point. But in terms of the Rockets franchise, their organization, it seems as though they are very, very content with what they have got at that point guard role. Before we get going, though, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We've noticed that over 74% of you who have watched these videos as of late are not subscribed. If you're looking for daily Rockets content and shorts, live streams, videos just like this, whatever it may be, the news, the information, the updates, we've got you covered, and it's 100% free. So go down there and hit that subscribe button. ESPN released an article talking about the biggest roster holes for all 30 NBA teams for the 2025-26 NBA season. And of course, you guessed it, the Houston Rockets' biggest roster hole is the point guard depth. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to discuss with this and talk about why this is, one, a valid concern, but also I don't think it's going to be a big issue once we get going on in the NBA season. First of all, we have to look at the depth chart for the Houston Rockets and what exactly this point guard / I want to throw in shooting guard depth as well, because those are two positions of the Rockets I'm not going to say just didn't look at, but they definitely focused more on their forward positions because, well, Ime Udoka, if he had it his way, he'd put 4 forwards out there on the court and then have Alperen Şengün as a center. That's the way he likes to play basketball, and, that's the way the Rockets have done it for the past couple years. It worked out last year. Hopefully it does the same thing this upcoming season. In terms of depth, though, at the point guard slot specifically, Fred VanVleet is going to be the starter, and as of right now, the labeled backup is Sheppard. We have Amen Thompson as our leading shooting guard, and I do think he actually will play some point guard at some points in this season, but in terms of point guard past that, you also have Aaron Holiday. Shooting guard, Josh Okogie is listed as the second-string shooting guard. I don't know how much we'll see him in a shooting guard role. I think he, again, is going to play more like a forward just because that's the way that Ime Udoka likes to kind of play some of the similar players that he's had to Okogie, so we'll have to see with that. The one guy that I think is not mentioned enough for the Houston Rockets is J.D. Davison. He has a 2-way contract with the Houston Rockets. He was a G League MVP last year for the Maine Celtics. And the Celtics decided to let him go. The Rockets said, okay, we'll take him right away, and we'll move on with that. I think he actually could be a very important piece, especially given the fact that, you can have him up for a certain amount of games. Before we get too far, though, this is what ESPN said was the bigger roster hole, but I want to know, do you agree? What do you think the biggest roster hole is for the Rockets in this upcoming 2025-26 NBA season? I want you to put your answer down in the comment section. Again, what do you think the biggest roster hole is for the Rockets in the 2025-26 season according to you? So for ESPN and what exactly they said, we have to go to Kevin Pelton, who wrote the article and talked about it here, saying, quote, "The Rockets are hoping 2024 number 3 overall pick Sheppard can solve this problem in his second season. Sheppard played just 654 minutes as a rookie, struggling to maintain a regular rotation role." And I start here by saying there was a reason he didn't have a regular rotation role. And I think it was less of the fact that he was not good and not valued, but more of the fact of he was not needed. Like, the Rockets had a pretty good point guard rotation as it sat, and Sheppard just wasn't in the equation. This season, he is going to have an increased role, and it is going to it's going to have to pay dividends if he can be good. The problem is we really don't know what to expect from Sheppard. 12.6 minutes per game last season, 4.4 points per game last season. But again, a lot of these minutes came in garbage time. So we've talked about Sheppard a lot this offseason. We've talked about the expectations, both from head coach Ime Udoka and from what Rafael Stone has said. Basically, the bottom line on top is we need Sheppard to be good, or this team is going to struggle potentially in that point guard position. That's exactly why this is probably one of the biggest roster holes for the Houston Rockets. But, again, I mentioned, he's not the only saving grace. And in some ways, if Sheppard doesn't perform in the way you want him to, there's ways you can mold and move this roster around to kind of work out the point guard position, at least in a way that would be, effective. Let's go back and kind of continue on with the last little bit of Kevin Pelton's little piece on the Rockets. He says, quote, Houston can turn to vet Aaron Holiday, who saw slightly more action last year, but Sheppard winning the job will be the best outcome, end quote. And it's true. Listen, Aaron Holiday is a team player. He signed for the vet minimum, and he's here to be a piece of depth for this Houston Rockets team. And I'll be the first to say that I believe the Houston Rockets have the best depth in the NBA. I don't think it's really that close. The one position they lack is definitely in the point guard slot. Even shooting guard, I feel pretty comfortable having Amen Thompson there. I think Josh Okogie could play valuable minutes. And at worst comes to worst, you can always move Reed Sheppard to the shooting guard role where he's more, I would say, effective and probably comfortable at, given that's where he played a majority of his time at the University of Kentucky. For Fred VanVleet, though, that's also a person we have to talk about and a person of interest for this Houston Rockets team because ultimately, if Fred VanVleet can be the guy that we saw last year, averaging 35-plus minutes per game and 14 minutes per game, along with a good assist of around 5.6, maybe even more this year, given the additions that the Rockets have made, I think they'll be just fine. Depth is an issue, correct, at the point guard slot. But something that can override depth is having a number one that is not necessarily a true scorer in a lot of ways. Like Fred VanVleet, there's going to be a lot of nights where he's not going to go out there and shoot and hit 15 to even 25 points a game. Like that's just not going to happen. If he can do a valuable 10 points per game and get the assists going, mold the offense, move the offense in the right way, the Rockets are going to be fine because guess what? That's going to put less stress on Fred VanVleet. He's not going to have to drive to the hole a lot, and he can run the offense more consistently. He'll have less breaks, less time on the bench, and that depth becomes a little less of a concern because when Fred VanVleet goes on the bench, you can just run Amen Thompson out there. So I think that's where, yes, I understand the depth issue is for sure something to keep watch of. But at the same time, I trust Aaron Holiday if we are ever needed to call upon him. I think he can come in and play valuable minutes in certain periods of time, i.e., last little minute of the first quarter when you want to try and get some extra rest for Fred VanVleet. There's a timeout taken. There's less than a minute to go. You put Aaron Holiday out there and let him just try and play defense. He's a good defender. Past that, he's valuable in certain other ways rather than just the way he puts up stats, I think is the bigger thing that I am trying to say. So going back and, again, taking a look at this point guard and shooting guard depth, they have so many people at the forward slot that they can move and kind of shape this team, especially when they use that double big, where if Fred VanVleet does have to go sit out and Reed Sheppard, for whatever reason, does not live up to the expectations that the Rockets are putting on him, maybe a lot of times Amen Thompson can just switch into that point guard role coming off the bench if he's, taking a break of his own, or just move him there, pop Josh Okogie, Reed Sheppard into the shooting guard role if that's what you'd rather and don't want to have Sheppard or Okogie running the floor, controlling the offense. Like I said, there's also Aaron Holiday, and I do think J.D. Davison has a very particular role in this team, especially because his body type and his game style and the way he manages a game reminds me a lot of Fred VanVleet. Now, it's nowhere near to the same extent as Fred VanVleet. I'm not trying to compare these two players in any light. Fred VanVleet is an NBA champion and is far better than J.D. Davison. But there is similarities in some ways that you can get by with and be able to, I think what the biggest kind of thing I'm trying to say here is the Rockets can work around this. The point guard depth is for sure a role, and I do think it is definitely probably the biggest hole they have on their roster. But because of the depth in other places and the way they have shaped this team, especially with the way that Ime Udoka likes to coach and having sometimes 3 to 4 forwards out there on the court at a time, I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue, especially against some smaller teams. I think we could easily see DFS be popped into a shooting guard role, and we wouldn't be even shocked by it. So there's ways around it, and I think the Rockets, as per usual with Ime Udoka, they're going to play an interesting style of basketball, and it is definitely not the ordinary. But guess what? That's what makes it special because really nobody else can run this. Like I said it in yesterday's video, and if you missed it, it's a good watch. But either way, the NFL is starting now, and I'm watching, of course, all the games, and the Eagles have this tush-push that nobody can stop, but nobody else can run. That's kind of how I see the Rockets. The double big lineup, it's something that everybody else could try, nobody else could run. The way they kind of mold their team, it's stuff that people have tried, but nobody else can run because of the way they have molded their team, the way that they have a coaching style, and specifically the way Ime Udoka can kind of formulate his, I'm going to say practices, play types, and in a lot of ways, players and what he wants them to do. So it'll be an intriguing season, but I'm excited for it, and we'll see if the point guard depth does come back to bite him. But that's all we got for you here today on Rockets Digest. We do appreciate you watching. As always, if you made it to the end of the video, you are a real one here on Rockets Digest, and I certainly do appreciate you. We'll see you next time, but for now, peace out, guys.